Well, welcome back, everyone, to the Space Bar. We are excited here to have two fantastic guests. We have Sean Hoff, who is the managing partner at Moniker, and we also have JD Miller, who is the CRO, Chief Revenue Officer for Modus. Hey, guys, how's it going?
Going very well, thank you.
Great, thanks for having us.
Yeah, no, it's exciting. We are talking about digital offsites and if that's actually a thing or not. So we're going to have fun getting into that in a second. But first, we're going to start off with our check-in round, which we do our capture questions so you guys can prove you're human. So JD, I'm going to start with you. What was your first car? Tell us about it.
Oh, it was my hand-me-down car from my grandparents. It was a purple Oldsmobile.
Beautiful.
And I used it to drive to school and convinced a neighbor to let me park on their driveway. But every day when I got out, I had to stick a piece of cardboard under the car to catch all the oil drips with a little brick on top to keep it from blowing away.
What kind of purple are you talking about?
Like 1978 purple.
All right. Nice. Wonderful. Sean, what about you?
It was first year university, and I got a used Nissan Pathfinder, which I absolutely loved and drove straight into the ground. Didn't drip its oil quite as much, but no, I think I had that for about 5 or 6 years before I gave it, and then I think I lived without a car for another like 10 years after.
Wow, incredible. My first car was also from my grandparents. It was after my grandmother had passed, or something had happened. So I got her like Ford Taurus station wagon, again, like a 1990 version. So it was not cool, but I fit a lot of stuff in there, man. I brought that to college and basically took everything I needed. It was fun. Cool. Well, today we're talking about digital offsites. So we're kind of at the time when everyone's thinking about, all right, are we going to get back into the office? What's that going to look like? But that thing, I feel like a lot of companies and a lot of digital leaders used to do was to say, hey, let's reward everyone. We've all been doing well. Let's do some kind of big offsite. Or we have the idea of like, we need to get some new location, something different in our minds so that we can think creatively, get more innovative and different things. But now we're stuck. It seems like that we still have to do these things virtually and digitally. So first, my question is like, when I say digital offsite, what does that even mean to you? Does that just like make you cringe and you're like, oh gosh, how do we do this? Or does that get you excited? JD, I'm going to start with you because I know you have a lot of ideas and experience with this.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. So in my role as Chief Revenue Officer, I run big sales teams, have about 120 folks that are sellers that normally we would bring together at the beginning of the year for some sort of a kickoff event. So we just finished one, and we had it virtually hosted by a theater downtown Chicago. So we can tell all about kind of how we mixed virtual and physical, but I think it's exciting.
Cool. And Sean, your experience, you run a company, but then you also help people think about this. So what does that mean to you when you hear that term, digital offsite?
Well, it's definitely become more popular in the last year. I think beforehand, digital offsite probably was just a different way of saying we're having a virtual conference. But I think in the last year, as companies have become more, just moved to like becoming more comfortable working and living in the remote world, it has turned into more than just meeting on a Zoom channel or having like an itinerary. It's turned into, there's quite a lot of like different platforms that are out there now that you can have the full replication of what used to be the on-site itinerary for an offsite or a retreat.
Yeah, and I think that's the big question that I'm going to start off with here, is that I think if you were just to poll people and get the majority opinion, they would say, look, there's no way that a digital offsite or event can ever replicate the in-person experience. And we are just kind of doing this because we have to, and then we'll get back to what we had before. JD, what do you think about that?
I mean, I think there's something different about them, but I think they can be rewarding in their own sense. When we did our offsite at the theater downtown, we wanted it to be more than just a Zoom meeting for our participants. And, even though we couldn't put them all in that same place at the same time, we wanted them to feel like they were there as much as possible. And so that meant things like having different tours kind of in the middle of our meeting to go backstage or to see the fly system. It meant sending, theater programs and popcorn and candy in boxes to people's houses so they felt like they were there. And, I think when people left the event, it wasn't the same as all being together. But they also all said, I feel a connection to this place. And the next time I'm in Chicago, I definitely want to go see it myself.
Well, tell us a little bit more about the experience, just so everyone knows kind of what you did and what it was like for the people participating.
Yeah, so at Modus, we would have brought our sales team together for a typical 2-day meeting of sales training and kickoff for the year, and we also have a big corporate value of philanthropy and being part of our community. So when we looked at what's the pandemic doing to our communities, we realized that the arts and theaters are really struggling right now. So there's a big historic theater downtown Chicago called the Auditorium Theater, and they've been closed for almost 12 months now, not having a single performance. And so we asked them if they would be our virtual host, which meant that me and like 2 other executives from the team were in this ancient theater, and everyone else, joined our meeting through video conference kind of technology. Before the event happened, we had the auditorium send out recordings of performances that have been done there, pieces from their concession stand, cocktail kits and popcorn and things like that. So they had, some physical thing that felt like part of the event. And then instead of a 2-day agenda that would have been 8 hours a day and kind of put people to sleep, we broke the meeting across 5 days. And we had, just sort of 2 hours a day for the whole week of our meetings, our training. And then every day there was always a 15-minute visit from someone from the auditorium. So whether they did a performance or they took us backstage on a tour or, told stories about, what it's like to be an architect for the building or something like that, they were sort of incorporating that into our meeting. And then finally on the last day, we had a group of salespeople who were had a lot of confidence, and they organized their own Zoom play. So they found a radio play that was 20 minutes long, and they performed it online. So it was sort of a fully integrated experience of the place that I was physically broadcasting from, but everyone else felt sort of a sense of place at.
Yeah, and this is not your first time to do this. You've done this virtual host idea with other concepts too, right?
Yeah, we're now doing that with almost every meeting that we have. So early on in the pandemic, retail stores were really struggling. So we've been hosted at a chocolate store, a family-owned chocolate store that hand dips marshmallows and shows us how you do that sort of thing. We've done wineries that were struck by the campfires, and we sent bottles of wine to our participants and heard from the winery owner. About how wine is made, and took us on a tour of the fields and showed us about the fires and all of those sorts of things. And really just looking for often small places that it wouldn't physically be possible to bring 120 people to, but if you're sending 2 people and a camera, we're opening up really small spaces to really large groups of people that wouldn't be familiar with them otherwise.
Yeah, great. Sean, tell us a bit about what companies are doing through Moniker. What are the kind of extremely creative digital experiences you're giving?
Well, it's funny, JD's mentioning about helping out the arts community, which is struggling. So a year ago, we were purely a travel-based company. Basically, we planned these elaborate offsites retreats for a few days at a time, anywhere around the globe. And then overnight, as we all have come to appreciate, travel just ground to a halt. And we started coming up with different ideas we spent 2 weeks probably kind of figuring out like what else was out there, trying different experiences that everybody was jumping into the virtual team building realm. And we didn't really like what we saw. We just thought a lot of it was, like virtual yoga or virtual mixology. There was a lot of the same things being repeated. And so we had some friends who were in the acting community in a town called Kingston, Ontario. And they were just about to launch on a cross Ontario tour of on-stage murder mysteries. And of course, on the day 1 of their first show, they got canceled, and they introduced this no gatherings larger than 10 people or 50 people at the time. So they were so excited for 2. They had 7 or 8 shows lined up. So we started working together and collaborating, and that was the first experience that we came in. We just said, how can we bring what you were about to do on stage to the virtual platform? And so we spent the next few weeks just basically trying every possible feature and trying to break Zoom for all it was worth. And we ended up launching this virtual murder mystery, which is, since we've done over 130 shows, we've spun it off into 3 separate scripts because there's been so much demand. But to JD's point, they started with a crew of I think 7 actors, and because of the demand and the need for understudies, we're now up to 22 actors who are employed part-time, with some being full-time. So that's just one of the things we've done. And then in terms of getting into the virtual retreats, we've had a lot of companies come to us. Most of our companies are already, our clients are already remote structured. And they were used to using the retreat as the once in the year opportunity to gather, which was perfect. And then of course, in the digital world, it was like, well, how do we do this from a digital standpoint where we can still take into account everybody's time zone, and we can make it a little bit more fun than logging on to some platform where it's like join session, join here, and basically sitting in front of your computer and listening or being spoken to by whatever was the keynote speaker or the session. And so we've been playing around with these ideas of, we've definitely dove into AR and VR to try to incorporate more of an immersive experience into how you can recreate as close to the real thing in a digital world. So that's been pretty exciting for us.
Yeah, that's great. JD, you guys experiment at all with augmented reality or virtual reality, or looking what direction?
I haven't yet. I think there's a feature on either Microsoft Teams or Zooms that takes our faces and puts us in like a little movie theater seats or something, but that's as far as we've gone.
Yeah. Cool. What's been the feedback you're getting from people that are actually experiencing this? Is it more in line? Because I mean, both of what you guys are doing, I feel like, is on the edge of what we're capable of right now. I think that most people just think, okay, let's just do some kind of basic Zoom thing. But you guys are really pushing the limits of what's possible, both in terms of mixing physical and digital, and just like you said, Sean, just pushing Zoom for all its limits of what you can do with it. When you hear feedback from people, are they saying like, that was good, it was about the best we could hope for? Or is there something unique that you're hearing from them? It's like, wow, this is something different that I wasn't expecting. Like, where are the participants falling on this?
Yeah, I think what we're hearing is, if it's been an event that's designed from the ground up to be a virtual one, they're really effective. If it feels like this was a meeting that was supposed to be in person and we're just trying to make it work on Zoom, there's something inauthentic about that. But if you start from the perspective of, and this is what I loved hearing Sean talk about, is finding the features. If you start from the perspective of, this is designed to be an online event, and that's the primary way it's supposed to be experienced, that resonates really well. We're also getting a lot of great feedback from our participants with, and I have an event planner that I work with on this. CNS Consulting always says, like, what's in the box? So in addition to the Zoom link, what are we sending to people to make them feel that they've got the same thing as everyone else, and there's something tangible that, whether it's a piece of clay that they're building sculptures on, or a painting they're doing, or some kind of food they're tasting together. How do you actually create an experience for someone in their living room or their second bedroom that makes them feel like they're having the same experience as everyone else?
100%. That's one thing we picked up on, is the feedback has been, that was pleasantly surprising. A lot of people go into another Zoom meeting or another gathering with kind of the skepticism. I mean, it's been a year now that we've been doing this, but the biggest thing that we've kind of pinned in on is trying to link what's happening on screen with a shared experience, and a lot of the time that comes down to putting something in their hands. So we've sent drink kits, we've sent care packages where it's all the snacks and food. There's a whole bunch of ways you can tie it back into the in-person thing, and it also just adds to the event that oh, okay, this is something special. It's not just a calendar block in your schedule of I have to log on and join this Zoom meeting. When something shows up at your door, and you toast your colleagues or your friends over the meeting with everybody sharing the same thing. It does add to the experience. I think the biggest challenge that we've seen in trying to recreate the in-person gatherings to the virtual has been the spontaneous conversations that happen. For example, when you've got a company of 80 people or 100 people and everybody's in that main Zoom lobby, it's chaos. It's chaos. You can't do it with 80 people. Whereas in real life, you could always have 3 or 4 people could be kind of in the back of the crowd, and they could be having their own little conversation quietly, or somebody at the front of the crowd could be talking to 2 people sitting beside them. And you could have these mini conversations while still being in the experience. Whereas in the Zoom world, the hardest part is, well, the only way you can really do that is you create multiple breakout rooms and people go join them, but then it feels forced. Then you're like sitting in a room and you're not part of what's going on in the main thing, and you're having these smaller conversations. And I feel that that's the biggest thing that's missing is those it's the impromptu, like just, hey, you know, how was your weekend last weekend? That doesn't happen on Zoom, and that's something that we've kind of picked up on along the way.
Yeah. Do you feel like that's necessarily a digital like limitation, like it can never be done? Or do you feel like it's just a matter of finding the right tool, finding the right platform, or the right feature being added onto something?
I would say that the biggest thing is, like, I've also noticed how fast companies like Zoom and Teams and Hangouts have been innovating. Right. Like all the extra features that are coming out, there's always a new beta feature. I think they're picking up on it. And they're starting to find better ways to make things customizable, to make things easier and feel more human. But there's always going to be a limitation to being able to recreate the in-person human interaction.
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead, JD.
I was going to say, so outside of my professional life, I also have a PhD in virtual communication and organizational communication. And a lot of the technology that's coming out of those studies now is like a window that you've always got open, even not during your meetings, but just during your regular workday, of just a streaming window that randomly puts people in front of you. And the same way, if you were in a physical office, you're walking down the hallway and maybe you stop and talk and maybe you don't. A lot of where I see that technology going is just serving a new face to you every 5-10 minutes. And maybe I ignore you, or maybe I say, oh, hey, let's have that. But I definitely think that those random water cooler conversations, Sean, are exactly the thing that we need to figure out a really great way to replicate, because that's where innovation happens.
Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah, so JD, in your company, you're talking about like 100+ people that are on these sales teams that get these experiences. Have you found a way to bring that down on like the 3 to 5 person group outside of just a breakout room?
Yeah, I mean, we're still trying to innovate on that, and I think it's the place that we struggle still as well. We've done the breakouts. We've tried to create activities like the Zoom play of how do you put 10 or 15 people in a small project that they then share with the rest of the group. But I don't think we're quite there yet. I think as the pandemic starts opening up, what we've been talking about is I don't think we're going to go from just virtual meetings to 120 people all in the room at the same time. Mm-hmm. But I think as more vaccines are out, we'll start doing events, maybe in the summer, that's 10 people in this location and 10 people in that location. And we're all connected by Zoom, but still having sort of a local experience and, being socially distant and all of that kind of stuff too.
Yeah, that makes sense. I like that as a long-term outlook to say, like, look, we're still going to be using these technologies and providing digital experiences, but also those kind of small groups of people that are physically in the same place that can experience it together. That sounds great.
Yeah. On that note, so I organize a homeless shelter in Chicago, and our typical fundraiser every year is this sleep out for homelessness, where normally I have 200 people in tents, all in Lincoln Park, kind of raising money for the organization. And this year we had to make it completely virtual because I couldn't put 200 strangers in tents with one another. And we saw our volunteers kind of naturally do that as well, where they said, okay, I'm going to put up a tent in my backyard for, the 6 people in my bubble, and I'm going to put a tent in my backyard for 5 people. And so while the official event was streaming all online, we saw that there were these little physical pockets kind of getting connected for the hour of the live stream and then having their own kind of private experience. So I think that's going to cross over into corporate world as well.
Yeah. Sean, what else would you, because I mean, Zoom is built mostly for one-on-one meetings, maybe like, I think it's probably optimized for maybe like a 5-person meeting or something like that. So it's really not, we can't say it was built for a big digital offsite. So are there other tools that you've experimented with, or is there certain features aside from like that kind of opening meeting type room that you'd really want to see from a different technology?
Yeah, we've been playing around, so our company's trying to build worlds where kind of taking the same concept of like Second Life or The Sims, where it's like an MMORPG where basically people would be able to pick an avatar, same way in that recent movie Ready Player One. Pick who you want to be, enter into this world, and using 3D renderers, which we've been able to hire, you build, like, for example, an island or a castle or whatever it might be. And basically, as colleagues and employees of the company, using your avatars, you kind of navigate the space. You go to rooms where you sit down and you watch the video, or you go outside and you play a game of capture the flag. And that is all. We're learning a lot about building within the platform Unity, which is like a game development platform. So it's crazy. Like a year ago, we were a travel company. Now we're like basically like indie game developers and learning a lot about it as we go. But I think that's kind of like JD, spot on. Like I don't think you're going to be able to get a lot of people together in real life yet. There's going to be a transitionary period of like hybrid, where like maybe this office in San Francisco is together, but they're not yet bringing the office from London there. And so you'll have these mini gatherings, but they'll all still want to be linked up together because they still want to, see each other interact. And so we're trying to create this, like, well, could we create a second life, but like second office, where groups would be able to get together and still have that same interaction, but it's a bit more human, and there's a bit more fun to it when you can see that apparently your CMO is really into pink leather jackets or something, where you can express yourself a little bit more than you can on Zoom.
Yeah, I like that a lot. JD, have you guys experimented with any other technologies, or one big request you'd have?
I think those are the big ones for now. I honestly have a question for Sean. I'm curious about the very future. One of the things that I've noticed with virtual events is we get a lot more participation for things like a user conference, or an event that we might have thrown for customers that, if you had to travel somewhere for 2 days, customer might not want to have done it. But if it's just log on, I can do that for 10, 15 minutes at home and see what I think and come and go. So I wonder, in the future, do you think we're going to have to just produce events that are always hybrid, that there's in-person and some sort of streaming option for casual?
I would think so. So I used to attend this trade show every year in Frankfurt, and it was like you go there for 3 days, and it was like 8 hours of like boom, 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 interviews and meetings and like these kind of sessions. And then you just be wiped at the end of the day, let alone after 3 days of that. And now there is a certain benefit that you can have, like meeting certain people and creating that relationship in person. But if somebody were to give me the option of, you can do these ones virtual because I live in Canada, as opposed to somebody who, for example, might be flying over from nearby France or down south in Munich, they might go because it's an adventure to them. But for me, if I look at how much can I get done in doing a few virtual meetings over the course of 3 days, or going and basically giving up my life and calendar for 3 days, I think you will see a hybrid. And then on the exhibitor side is they might have a face-to-face interaction, and then their next appointment, they go over to a quiet room, they close the door, and they do their next one virtually. They'll be able to hit a bigger market, speak to more people, and do it on more comfortable terms with whoever prefers to do whichever method. So I think that's the way to do it, definitely for trade shows and conferences. I think for retreats, I don't know. I think retreats where the focus or incentive trips where the focus and the objective is to like celebrate or just kind of be with people and really develop that camaraderie, I think it'll still be a focus on in-person.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
If anything, COVID and all the quarantines and stay-at-home orders has taught us is how much people really do miss and took for granted the ability to just hang out with friends, go places, like even little interactions, like being at a market or going grocery shopping and not being afraid that person is reaching over to get the avocado that you're reaching for. Like those are the little things that when we go back to that, I hope people are more present and appreciative of it.
Yeah, I kind of think about the reward trip, and for years and years it was always, how do you make it even bigger and even bigger and even bigger? And I think the first couple of reward trips, we're not going to have to do anything terribly fancy to impress people. It'll just be,
can you get us pizza somewhere? Yeah. Can we have a beer together? Yes.
Excellent. Well, Sean, why don't you end asking JD a question, since he's asked you one.
Yeah, I guess one of the questions I have for you is so you've done a great job of explaining how you've kind of incorporated trying to support like all these the artist community or the local retail. How do you take that, or how would you see people kind of championing that to their cities as well? So you've been a great sponsor of the Chicago scene. Let's say there's somebody in Portland who feels like they could use or leverage the digital platform to help their city and any communities or retail that have been suffering. What are your ideas on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it comes out of the values of the organization having the event. You know, at Modus, we always had sort of a series of charities and a series of things that we wanted to support. So, you know, with that just started opening eyes to like, okay, so if we had been together, what would we have done? How do we do that? I've been amazed at actually how easy it is to set up. You know, we work with great event planners, and you know, I'm a huge supporter of, you know, a professional event planner to do this kind of thing. But I've also found that, you know, my local store or my local theater or whoever walking in and saying, "Hey, I have this brand new idea, and we want to help you out. I'm wondering if you can," and then, you know, kind of the sky's the limit. You know, can you show me how to make marshmallows for 10 minutes and we'll buy 100 boxes of chocolate from you? And everyone's like, yeah, that sounds great. So it's really just, you know, putting it out there and asking the question to people that you think you might want to do something neat with, and they'll generally say yes.
I like that a lot. I like the idea of even something like that, like a small chocolate shop. Like you wouldn't be able to bring 100 people in there and like watch them do that perhaps, but that's even an experience that other people wouldn't be able to have otherwise. It's great.
Yeah, and we talk a lot about the, you know, we say only at Modus experience, and I think those are the moments in these events that, you know, wherever you're going, asking what's the one thing that we'll only be able to do this way. And you know, the auditorium theater was like, you know, it'd be so cool. Our public tours can never go up in the catwalks and see the thunder and lightning machine because it's this little rickety ladder that only one person can go. But we can take you with your camera, and they were really excited about it. You know, it's really just kind of asking questions and saying, you know, what would you be interested in doing, and, you know, let's see if we can make it work.
Yeah. And I think we haven't even talked about the concept of, you know, employee retention and keeping people engaged, and the companies like Modus that are really pushing the boundaries on like saying we can still do this, we can still offer great experiences. That's got to be a big win for you when people are realizing like, yeah, if I switch companies, I'm not going to get this experience. They know that you guys are really doing a great job there.
Yeah, for sure. It becomes a recruiting tool.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, telling their friends about it too. That's cool. Well, great, guys. This has been a fantastic session. I've really enjoyed to hear from both of you. I feel like you're both pioneers in this field and going in different ways. So we look forward to kind of checking in every once in a while and just hearing what's next and how you're doing things. But I think the future's bright. Hopefully we're not out of it yet, but hopefully things will get better and digital will become more of an option, more of a way to augment experiences, or physical to augment the digital experience. We'll kind of see how that plays out in the future. But thank you both for being on this space bar and having fun. And we look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thank you,
Excellent. Dan. Thanks for having us.
Bye, Judy.